The unexpected encounter. The afternoon sun filtered through the thick canopy of trees, casting dappled shadows across the park. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, creating a soothing hum that mingled with the distant laughter of children playing. It was the kind of peaceful day where the world seemed to slow down, where time felt like it belonged to no one in particular. At the far end of the park, sitting alone on a wooden bench, was Emily Parker. Dressed in a simple white summer dress, her long blonde hair resting against her shoulders, she looked like any other young woman enjoying the fresh air. But there was one notable difference. She couldn't see the beauty around her. Emily had lost her vision 5 years ago in an accident, a sudden and cruel twist of fate that had changed everything in her life. Yet, despite the darkness that had claimed her world, she had found solace in something, or rather someone. Her guide dog, Rex. A strong, intelligent, and fiercely loyal German shepherd, Rex had been her companion, her guardian, and her closest friend since the day she had received him. But what most people didn't know was that Rex wasn't just a regular guide dog. He was a retired K-9 officer. Before being assigned to Emily, Rex had served in the police force, trained in search and rescue missions and high-pressure situations. He had spent years putting criminals in their place, responding to tense situations with calm precision. Even in retirement, that instinct had never left him. Now he was more than just a guide dog. He was her protector. A peaceful afternoon. Emily sat with her hands gently resting on Rex's sturdy frame, feeling the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing. "Good boy," she murmured, scratching behind his ears. Rex let out a soft sigh, his tail swishing lightly against the ground. He was always alert, always watching, even when it seemed like he was simply relaxing. Emily had learned to trust him completely. She knew that as long as Rex was by her side, she was safe. The park was one of her favorite places. She loved the sounds of it. The soft crunch of gravel beneath jogging shoes, the excited yells of kids chasing after a soccer ball, the occasional bark of another dog greeting its owner. It made her feel connected. Even in the darkness, she could feel life happening around her. But today, something felt different. Rex's ears twitched. His breathing changed ever so slightly. His body, once relaxed, tensed under her fingers. Emily frowned. "Rex," she whispered. He didn't make a sound, but she could feel him shift. And that's when she realized they weren't alone anymore. The bikers arrive. The low, rumbling growl of motorcycle engines broke through the usual hum of the park, the kind of deep, guttural sound that demanded attention. Emily turned her head slightly in the direction of the noise, her grip on Rex's harness tightening just a little. She wasn't afraid, not yet, but she knew that Rex wouldn't react like this unless something was off. The bikes came to a halt near the park entrance. The engines cut off, leaving behind an almost eerie silence. Then, footsteps. Heavy boots against the pavement. Slow, measured. Emily didn't need to see them to know they were coming her way. Rex let out a quiet huff through his nose, his body still tense, his focus locked on the approaching figures. Then came the voice. Loud, arrogant, overconfident. Well, look at this." Emily tilted her head slightly. A man's voice, deep with an edge of amusement. There was no kindness in it. Rex remained still, but she could feel his muscles coiled beneath her touch, waiting. Another voice, younger and cockier. "Sitting all alone, huh?" Emily exhaled softly, keeping her posture relaxed. She had dealt with people like this before, the ones who thought they were funny, the ones who saw her blindness as some kind of entertainment. But she wasn't defenseless. Not with Rex here. "Is there something I can help you with?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. A chuckle. "Nah, just wondering what a pretty girl like you is doing sitting alone in the park. Looks a little sad, don't you think?" Emily resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "I'm not alone," she said simply, running her hand down Rex's back. The man laughed. "Oh yeah, I see that. Big old guard dog, "Ha." Emily didn't respond, but Rex's silence was an answer of its own. The man clicked his tongue. "What's the matter? He doesn't bite, does he?" Emily tightened her grip on Rex's harness. "He doesn't need to." The second guy laughed. "Oh, I like her." The first man took a step closer. Emily couldn't see him, but she could feel it. The way the space around her shifted, the way Rex adjusted his position ever so slightly. The biker was testing something. Rex knew it, and so did Emily. The mistake that changed everything. Then, it happened. The sound of movement. A sudden, deliberate gesture. Then, a sharp impact. Not against her, against Rex. A boot. A kick. Emily heard it more than she felt it. The dull thud of a heavy boot colliding with fur and muscle. And in that instant, the world shifted. Rex reacted faster than any of them expected. Not with panic, not with fear, but with trained precision. Emily barely had time to process what had happened before Rex moved, his posture snapping into a defensive stance, his body a solid wall between her and the biker. And then, a sound, a deep guttural growl. Not loud, not aggressive, but controlled, calculated, dangerous. The kind of sound that stopped hearts. The kind of sound that made men think twice. The kind of sound that said, "You made a mistake." The biker stumbled back, a string of curses escaping his lips. The hell. Emily's heart was pounding. Not from fear, but because she knew what was coming next. She took a deep breath. And then, she spoke the words that changed everything. "You shouldn't have done that." The man scoffed, still trying to play off his stumble. "Relax. Lady, it was just a—" "No," Emily interrupted, her voice steady. "You really shouldn't have done that." The biker's mouth opened, but then he saw it. Rex's eyes, the controlled stillness of a dog who had been trained for combat. A dog who had faced worse threats than some park bully. And for the first time, he realized. He had just kicked a retired K-9 officer, and that meant one thing. This wasn't over yet. When respect is earned, not taken. The park, which had been buzzing with life just moments ago, had now fallen into an eerie stillness. The rustling leaves, the distant laughter of children, the gentle hum of conversation, it all seemed to disappear in the face of the moment unfolding. All eyes were on Rex. The German shepherd, once seated in quiet vigilance beside Emily, now stood in a position of power. His stance was unwavering, his gaze locked onto the biker who had made a mistake he would soon regret. His body wasn't tense out of fear, but out of trained control, a quiet dominance that didn't need to be exaggerated. And the biker, who just seconds ago had been full of arrogance, was beginning to feel the weight of his actions, a shift in the air. A man's laugh had died in his throat. He took a small step back, glancing around as if trying to regain control of the situation. His two friends, who had once been chuckling along with him, now stood frozen, their confidence shaken. Emily, her fingers still lightly resting on Rex's harness, felt the shift in the air. She didn't need to see to know that something fundamental had changed. "What the hell is wrong with your dog?" The biker snapped, trying to sound casual, but the edge in his voice betrayed him. Emily's expression remained calm, though her heart pounded. "You tell me," she said evenly. "You're the one who kicked him." A few bystanders who had been watching from a distance began murmuring among themselves. Some had already pulled out their phones, their cameras discreetly recording. The biker scowled, rolling his shoulders like he was trying to shake off the tension. "Relax, lady. It was just a little nudge." Emily tilted her head slightly, listening carefully, not just to his words, but to the way he said them. There was something different in his tone now. A hesitation, an uncertainty. She smiled faintly. "You don't sound so sure." His scowl deepened. "What's that supposed to mean?" Emily reached down, her fingers brushing against Rex's fur. "You weren't expecting that, were you?" The biker clenched his jaw, But before he could speak, Rex moved, not toward him, but in a way that made it impossible to ignore the quiet power in his presence. A single step forward, deliberate, precise, and for the first time, the biker truly looked at him, not just as a dog, but as something more, something trained, something that had seen battles he would never understand. The biker had pushed a former K-9 officer, and now, he had to decide whether he wanted to keep pushing. The weight of a name. Emily let the silence stretch. Then, with quiet authority, she said, "His name is Rex." Something about the way she said it sent a ripple through the crowd, as if the name itself carried weight. The biker swallowed hard. "Yeah, so what?" Emily let out a soft breath. "So," she said, "he's not just a guide dog." She let those words sink in before adding, "He's a retired K-9. A few gasps from the small crowd that had gathered. The biker's face twitched. "That's," he scoffed, shaking his head. "That's bull." "It's not," Emily interrupted smoothly. She reached down, her fingers brushing over the patch on Rex's harness. "See this?" she asked, even though she couldn't see it herself. "It doesn't just say guide dog. It says former K-9 unit." The biker's friends shifted uncomfortably. They had come here thinking they'd get a laugh at a blind girl's expense. Instead, they had walked into something much bigger than themselves. A dog that had spent years in the police force. A dog trained to handle threats. A dog that didn't react out of fear, but out of discipline. And they had just tested him. When fear turns into respect. The biker's hands clenched into fists. He was embarrassed. His friends were watching him, waiting to see how he would handle this. The crowd had turned against him. And the dog. The dog was still standing there, watching, waiting. A dog like that didn't react unless it needed to. And that thought, more than anything else, unsettled him. Emily, sensing his hesitation, decided to push just a little further. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "most people who see Rex can tell right away that he's different." The biker glared at her. "Different how?" She smiled faintly. "Because he doesn't react the way they expect him to." The biker blinked. Emily tilted her head slightly. "You were hoping he'd jump. Maybe bark. Maybe look scared." Silence. "But he didn't, did he?" The biker said nothing. Emily ran her hand gently over Rex's back. "He didn't move because he's trained for situations exactly like this. He doesn't react unless I tell him to. He doesn't overstep. He doesn't lose control. That's the difference between a dog and a K-9. A heavy pause. Then softly, "He knew you were bluffing before you did." The biker exhaled sharply, running a hand over his shaved head. For the first time in a long time, he felt small. Not because of Emily. Not even because of Rex. But because of the truth in her words. This wasn't just a dog. This was an officer. And for the first time, he realized what that meant. A choice to make. The biker looked around. People were watching. Some were filming. And he knew this moment wasn't just going to go away. His choices were simple. Leave quietly, or push his luck. His friends had already taken a step back, sensing that the tide had turned. The biker swallowed. Then, he did something no one expected. He took a deep breath. And then slowly, he nodded. "All right," he muttered. "I get it." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" she asked, her voice unreadable. The biker exhaled again, then looked at Rex. Truly looked at him, and nodded again. "Yeah," he admitted. "I do." Emily didn't smile. She didn't rub it in. She just let the moment sit. Then, finally, "You should go," she said simply. And this time, the biker listened. He turned. His friends followed. No more bravado. No more jokes. Just silence. And a lesson learned. Epilogue. The power of respect. As they left, Emily reached down and gently scratched behind Rex's ears. "Good boy," she murmured. Rex's tail swished once. A few people from the crowd clapped. A few even came up to check on her. But Emily? She just smiled. Because she knew Rex had already handled it. And sometimes respect isn't demanded. It's earned. A lesson in true strength. The park slowly returned to its natural rhythm. Birds chirped, leaves rustled in the wind, and distant laughter from children playing in the open field echoed through the space. But for those who had witnessed what just happened, there was a lingering silence, an unspoken weight in the air. Emily remained seated on the wooden bench, unmoved but entirely aware. Her fingers rested gently on Rex's back, feeling the slow rise and fall of his breathing. He hadn't reacted out of fear or aggression, only control, discipline, and quiet power. He was still ready, still watching, even though the threat had walked away, even though the biker had learned his lesson. The ripple effect. A few people from the gathering crowd hesitated, unsure if they should step forward or just let her be. They had expected a different outcome, maybe a fight, maybe chaos. But what they got instead was something far more impactful. A moment of quiet dominance. A reminder that strength doesn't have to be loud. A woman who had been filming everything approached cautiously. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you okay?" Emily smiled. "I'm always okay," she answered. The woman hesitated, then looked at Rex. That was incredible. I've never seen a dog react like that. He knew exactly what to do. Emily nodded. "He always does." The woman exhaled, glancing in the direction the bikers had left. "I think that guy is going to be rethinking a lot of things." Emily smirked slightly. "Good." The woman chuckled. "You handled that better than I think most people would have." Emily shrugged. Rex handled it. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, the woman reached out and gently patted Rex's head. "Thank you for showing people that real strength doesn't need to be aggressive." Emily's smile softened. That's what he was trained for. The woman gave her a nod, then walked away, her phone still in hand, ready to share the moment with the world. And that was how it began. The power of a story. The video went viral. Within hours, thousands of people had watched it. Within days, millions had seen it. And suddenly, people everywhere were talking about it. Former K9 guide dog stands his ground against aggressive biker. The dog that taught a lesson without a single bite. Service dogs are more than just helpers. They're heroes. People saw the quiet confidence in Rex's stance. They saw Emily's unwavering trust in him. They saw the moment when a man who thrived on intimidation realized he was in the presence of something far greater than himself. And most importantly, they saw the lesson. A lesson about respect. A lesson about strength. A lesson about how true power isn't in forcing fear, but in standing firm in who you are. A changed man. Somewhere, in a small apartment cluttered with motorcycle gear and half-finished projects, the biker sat in silence, watching the video. He had replayed it dozens of times, watching himself, seeing how small he looked next to a dog who hadn't even flinched. A dog who had faced far worse in his years of service, yet still carried himself with discipline, patience, and restraint. He had spent so many years thinking power meant being the loudest, the toughest, the most feared. But now, he wasn't so sure anymore. He closed his laptop, rubbing his hands together. Then, after a long pause, he made a decision. A year later, the park looked just as it always did. Sunlight filtering through the trees. The gentle chatter of people enjoying the outdoors. And Emily, sitting on her usual bench, Rex at her side, his ears flicking at the familiar sounds around them. She wasn't expecting anything unusual that day. But then, she heard a familiar voice. "Hey, do you mind if I sit?" Emily's fingers froze for just a moment. She knew that voice. She tilted her head slightly, smiling faintly. "That depends," she said. "Are you here to kick my dog again?" A soft chuckle. Not mocking this time. Just different. "I'd rather shake his paw, if he'll let me." Emily turned toward the voice. "That's a bold request." A deep exhale. "I know." A pause. Then she felt it. The shift in Rex's body. His tension was gone. Instead of alertness, there was something else. Recognition. As if he could sense what had changed. Emily smiled. "I think you already have his answer." The man hesitated. Then slowly, he knelt down beside Rex. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid. For the first time, he understood. With a careful hand, he reached out, waiting, letting Rex decide. And the German shepherd, after a long, thoughtful moment, lifted his paw and placed it in the man's hand. A quiet, unspoken understanding. A moment of redemption. A reminder that respect isn't taken, it's earned. Epilogue. The legacy of a K9. That moment in the park didn't just change one man. It changed thousands of people who watched it. It reminded them that dogs like Rex weren't just animals. They were guardians, protectors, and silent warriors who gave everything for their handlers. It inspired more people to respect service animals. It led to more awareness, more understanding, and more kindness. And as for Emily, she simply continued on as she always had, with Rex by her side, trusting in him, knowing that whatever came next, he would be ready. Because that's who he was, and that's who he would always be. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.